My son threw me out into the street, in front of 15 neighbors screaming, "You are a parasite. You are worthless." I walked out with one suitcase and absolute silence. What he did not know is that the $8 million company he thought was his was still 100% in my name. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell because we have new stories every day. Leave a like and tell us in the comments what city you are watching from. My name is David Miller. I am 64 years old, and for the last 2.5 decades, I built something I was proud of. A tech company valued at $8 million. But on September 28th, a Saturday afternoon, my life changed brutally in less than 10 minutes. I was in the living room of the house I shared with my son Daniel and his wife Jessica. I had lived there for 3 years after becoming a widower. Sarah, my wife, had passed away in July of 2019 after 42 years of marriage. Since then, Daniel insisted I move in with them. "Dad, you cannot be alone," he told me with a voice that back then I interpreted as filial concern. That afternoon I was reading when Daniel stormed in like a hurricane. His face was red with fury. The veins in his neck were bulging. Jessica came behind him with her arms crossed, and that cold look I had learned to recognize in recent months. "Enough!" Daniel shouted. "I am sick of supporting you. You are a freeloader who contributes nothing to this house." I froze. The words made no sense. I paid $1,200 a month for my room and expenses, a specific amount I'd insisted on giving from day one. But before I could respond, he continued, "You haven't worked in 5 years, living off what I built. The company is mine now, and you are nothing but a useless old man taking up space." Jessica nodded at every word. "We need this space for the future, baby," she added with a cutting voice. There was no baby. I learned that later. I tried to speak calmly. "Daniel, son, we can discuss this with—" "Do not call me son." He interrupted with a roar that made the pictures on the wall shake. "A real father would have put the company in my name years ago. But you, selfish as always, you cling to useless papers while I do all the work." I walked into the hallway looking for privacy for this conversation that was falling apart. That was when I realized. The curtains were open, the windows too. On the street, 15 neighbors had stopped. Mrs. Higgins from the 4th floor, Mr. Henderson with his dog, the young couple from the 2nd floor. Everyone was looking up with expressions somewhere between surprised and ashamed to witness this. Daniel followed me to the foyer. "I want you gone right now. Pack your things and get out." "Daniel, please, let's talk in private." I tried once more, being conscious of the involuntary audience. "Private why? So you can keep manipulating me like you did my whole life?" His voice reached a volume that resonated through the entire building. "Everyone needs to know what kind of man you are. A stingy old man who never gave me what I deserved." Jessica appeared with my suitcase already packed. That hit me harder than the words. They had planned this. The suitcase contained barely some clothes and basic items. Nothing else. "This is your suitcase," she said, dropping it at my feet. "We are donating the rest. You do not need anything else." I looked at my son. His eyes, which once reminded me of Sarah, were now those of a stranger full of rage and contempt. I searched his face for some trace of the boy I had raised, of the young man I had taught everything about the business. But I found nothing. I did not beg. I did not cry. Something inside me, a voice that sounded curiously like Sarah's, said to me, "Keep your dignity. Always keep your dignity." I took the suitcase. "Okay," I said with a calm I did not know I possessed. "I'm leaving. And do not come back." Daniel spat. "You are worth nothing. You were never worth anything." I walked toward the door under the gaze of 15 neighbors on the street. Some looked away in shame. Others looked at me with pity. I heard Mrs. Higgins murmur something about what a disgrace, but I did not know if she referred to me or Daniel. I went down the stairs slowly. Every step was a hammer blow to my chest, but I held my head high. upon leaving the building. Mr. Henderson approached. David, if you need anything, thank you. Henderson, I responded with a smile that cost me every ounce of strength. I am fine. That is a lie. I was not fine. I was destroyed, humiliated, but I was also something else. Lucid. Because what Daniel did not know, what Jessica did not know, what no one except my lawyer, Andrew, and my accountant, Lisa, knew, was that the $8 million company had never left my name. Not a single paper, not a single share. Daniel was an employee, an operations director with an excellent salary, but an employee in the end. As I walked toward the nearest hotel, my phone began to ring. It was Daniel. I did not answer. He called again. I ignored the call. And another one. And another. In total. That night I received 47 calls that I did not answer, because I had understood something fundamental in those 10 minutes of public humiliation. My son had not kicked me out of his house. My son had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And I, the useless old man, had something in that suitcase more valuable than clothes: the original ownership documents of the company, copies of contracts, and the phone number of 3 German investors who had been wanting to buy my technology for 6 months. 48 hours. That was all I needed, in that hotel room, sitting on a bed that was not mine, with a suitcase containing barely the essentials. I did something I had not done in years. I remembered the beginning of everything. It was March of 1998. Sarah and I were 38 years old. We lived in a tiny apartment in the city with Daniel, who was 10 years old then. I worked as an engineer in a multinational corporation that paid me well, but it suffocated my soul. Every day was identical to the previous one. Office, mediocre boss, rejected ideas, wasted potential. One night, Sarah found me drawing diagrams on the dining table. It was 2 a.m. "What are you doing?" she asked with that sweetness that characterized her. "Designing software that will revolutionize inventory management for small businesses," I replied without looking up. "No one is doing it right. All the systems are expensive, complicated, inaccessible." Sarah observed the papers for long minutes. Then she said something that would change our lives. "Quit tomorrow. Let's try it." "Sarah, we have a son, a mortgage, bills. We have $5,000 in savings. You have talent that is being wasted, and I can work double shifts at the hospital while you build this." She was a nurse at City General Hospital. "I trust you." "David, I have always trusted you." I resigned that week, for 18 months. Sarah worked exhausting shifts while I programmed from our apartment. Daniel learned to cook pasta because Mom arrived exhausted and Dad was in front of the computer until dawn. Those were hard times. But honest? The first client arrived in September of 1999, a hardware store in the suburbs. They paid $1,200 for the software. I cried when I received that check. Sarah framed it. "It is the first of many," she said. She was right. By 2001, we already had 27 clients. In 2003, 140. In 2005, we opened a real office with 3 employees. By 2010, we were 50 people with a presence all over the state. Sarah left the hospital in 2006. Not because I asked her to, but because she wanted to be in the company. She took charge of administration, human resources, organizational culture. She was the heart while I was the brain. Daniel grew up seeing his parents build something from zero, seeing sacrifice transformed into achievement, or so I thought, in 2015. Daniel was 27 years old. He had studied business administration, worked in 2 different companies, and one day he appeared in my office. "Dad, I want an advance on my inheritance, $500,000 to invest in a project." I was surprised. "Daniel, the company is worth millions, but that capital is reinvested. I do not have that liquidity available." "Then give me equivalent stock participation," he insisted. "It is my future too." Something in his tone made me uncomfortable. It was not a request. It was a demand. Son, when the moment comes, we will talk about succession. Now is not the time. When will be the moment? When you are 50 and you are 80, when it doesn't matter anymore. His frustration was palpable. Daniel, this is not about age, it is about preparation. He left, slamming the door. That night, Sarah and I talked until dawn. He is impatient, I said. He wants everything now without understanding the work it implies. Sarah, always perceptive, said something that back then I minimized. Daniel loves the results, not the process. He loves the money, not the work. Be careful. David. In 2018, 3 years after that conversation, Daniel returned, calmer, apparently mature. Dad, I want to work with you, learn from the inside, earn my place. I hired him as operations director with a salary of $4,500 a month. Generous, but fair for the position. He signed a standard labor contract. I never mentioned stock participation, because something, intuition perhaps, stopped me. He worked well the first year, managed clients, supervised teams, showed initiative, but I observed details. He arrived late, delegated without follow-up, promised without delivering. Sarah noticed it too. July of 2019, the month that shattered my world. Sarah fell ill suddenly, aggressive pancreatic cancer. 3 weeks from diagnosis to the end. 3 weeks where time stopped and accelerated simultaneously. The last day, at the hospital, Sarah asked everyone to leave, just the two of us. She handed me a yellow envelope sealed with adhesive tape. Open it if Daniel ever betrays you, she whispered with effort. Sarah? What are you saying? He is our son. He is my son too. That is why I know what I'm saying. Her eyes, fading but lucid, held my gaze. Promise me you will protect what we built together. Do not let anyone, not even him, destroy our legacy, I promise you. And promise me something else. If the moment comes, live for yourself. Start over. Do not stay trapped in guilt or misunderstood loyalty. I cried like a child. How am I going to live without you? Living. David, simply living. She smiled weakly. You were the love of my life. Now be the love of yours. She died that night with my hand in hers. I kept the envelope without opening it. For 5 years it was in my safe, forgotten under documents and contracts, until that September 28th of 2024, when in the hotel room, rummaging through my suitcase, I found that yellow envelope I had brought by pure instinct. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were 12 pages written with Sarah's careful handwriting. The first sentence froze me. David, if you are reading this. Daniel showed his true face. I am so sorry. My love. The following pages detailed observations she had made in silence. Conversations where Daniel spoke of accelerating the inheritance. Disparaging comments about my age. Plans with Jessica, whom she met months before he introduced her to us. Sarah had investigated discreetly and discovered intentions that I, blinded by paternal love, did not want to see. The last page said, You did not transfer shares because your instinct protected you. Trust that instinct now. Protect what is ours. And when everything ends, please, live. Find joy again. You deserve it. I closed the envelope while tears fell on the pages. Sarah had known. 5 years before, she already knew. My phone vibrated. Daniel again. Call number 72 since the expulsion. I did not answer, because I had just understood that Sarah had given me more than a warning. She had given me permission to do what was necessary, and I would do it. The early morning of September the 29th, with Sarah's letter still trembling in my hands, I made a decision that would change everything. I needed to know exactly what had been happening in my own company, while I, naive, trusted, blindly. I called Lisa, my accountant. It was 6 a.m, but she answered on the second ring. Lisa had been our accountant since 2010, 14 years of impeccable loyalty. If there were suspicious movements, she would have detected them. David, thank God you called. I've been trying to contact you since yesterday. Her voice sounded tense, almost terrified. I need to see you urgently. I cannot speak on the phone. We met at a coffee shop far from the office. Lisa arrived with a bulging folder and deep circles under her eyes. She sat in front of me, and the first thing she said was, "Forgive me for not informing you sooner. Daniel threatened to fire me if you found out." She opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, transfers, corporate documents I had never seen. My stomach contracted. In March of this year, Daniel and Jessica registered a parallel company, Tech Vega Solutions. Vega is Jessica's maiden name. Lisa pointed to the articles of incorporation. Initially, I thought it was a personal project. But then I noticed the transfers. What transfers? Our clients started appearing on Tech Vega invoices. Small amounts at first. External consulting services that never went through our official books. In 6 months, $300,000 diverted. Her finger traced an endless list of transactions. Daniel used his position as operations director to offer special discounts if clients also hired Tech Vega services. He split the invoices to make it look legitimate. $300,000. 6 months. 50,000 monthly stolen systematically. There is more, Lisa continued with a broken voice. I found deleted emails on the server. I recovered them because I do automatic backups that Daniel does not know about. She took out printed sheets. Read this. The first email was from Jessica to Daniel, dated August 5th. I already contacted Dr. Evans. He says that with 2 medical certificates, we can start the incapacitation process. Your father is 64 years old, recent widower, evident social isolation. The profile fits. My blood froze. The second email, from Daniel to Jessica. August 14th. We need to act fast. The old man is reviewing too many documents lately. If he discovers Tech Vega before getting the power of attorney, we lose everything. I propose mandatory vacation in October. We take him to that clinic upstate that you mentioned. A week there and we will have the necessary certificates. Clinic, certificates, legal incapacitation. They had planned to falsely commit me to declare me incompetent and steal the company through forged documents. Keep reading, Lisa whispered. Third email. Jessica to Daniel. September 3rd. Dr. Evans confirmed that with power of attorney, we could transfer corporate assets without raising immediate suspicions. He calculates 3 months, until external auditors detect irregularities. By then, we will have liquidated the main assets and will be legally protected. Fourth email. Daniel to unknown partner. September 18th. 10 more days and the problem will be resolved. My father will sign whatever is necessary, or we will do it through judicial means. The company will finally be mine. 10 days before kicking me out. Lisa, why didn't you tell me anything sooner? My voice came out hoarse, barely audible. She had tears in her eyes. Daniel discovered me reviewing files 3 weeks ago. He told me that, if you found out, he would invent that I was an accomplice to the embezzlement, that he would destroy me professionally. I have 2 daughters in college. David, he terrified me. She sobbed. But when I found out yesterday that they had kicked you out of your own house, I knew I had to risk it. I'm so sorry. I put my hand on hers. You did well to wait for the right moment. Now I need you to help me with something else. Anything. I need certified copies of every document, every transfer, every email, and I need you to contact our lawyer, Andrew. Without Daniel knowing, Lisa nodded and took out a USB drive. It is all here. Duplicates in 3 secure locations, and Andrew is waiting for your call. I contacted him last night. Smart, loyal, exactly what I needed. Andrew had been my lawyer since 2002. He was 67 years old. We met that same afternoon in his downtown office. He reviewed the documents for 2 hours without saying a word. Finally, he took off his glasses and looked at me with a grave expression. David, this is corporate fraud. embezzlement of funds, and conspiracy to commit procedural fraud through false incapacitation. Daniel could face up to 8 years in prison. I do not want him to go to prison, I said immediately. He is still my son. I understand, but he is not treating you like a father. He is treating you like an obstacle. Andrew drummed his fingers on the desk. What do you want to do, sell? Fast, before he attempts something more desperate. Andrew nodded slowly. You have potential buyers. Those Germans you mentioned have been sending proposals for months. The Germans, a technology group from Munich, specifically interested in my proprietary management software. They had offered $7.5 million in June. Daniel had rejected the offer without consulting me, telling them the owner was not interested. Contact them today, I ordered. Tell them the real owner is very interested, and Daniel will discover what he lost when it is too late. That night, in the hotel, my phone exploded. 134 calls from Daniel in total since the expulsion. Desperate messages. Dad, we need to talk. It was a misunderstanding. Jessica pressured me. Please, answer. I ignored every single one, because I had understood something fundamental. My silence was my most powerful weapon. Every hour without a response was an hour where Daniel lost control, where his panic grew, where his plans crumbled. Andrew sent me a message at midnight. Germans available for video call tomorrow at 10 a.m. They are very interested, I replied. Perfect. Close the sale in 48 hours. I closed my eyes, but I could not sleep. The betrayal hurt like a rusty knife, but the pain was transforming into something more useful. Cold and calculated determination. Daniel had underestimated the old parasite. Fatal error. The video call with the Germans began at 10 sharp on September 30th. From Andrew's office, facing the screen, 3 faces appeared. Klaus Hoffman, Director of Acquisitions, Petra Bergman, Financial Analyst, and Thomas Weiss, Technical Director. Klaus spoke first in impeccable English. Mr. Miller, we were pleasantly surprised by your call. We thought you had rejected our proposal permanently. My son rejected it without consulting me, I responded firmly. I am the only registered owner of the company. He was an employee with limited authority who overstepped. I saw them exchange looks. Petra took notes quickly. This worried them, as was logical. I understand, Klaus said cautiously. Could you explain the current situation? Andrew intervened. Showing documentation, original deeds since 1998, updated mercantile certificates, minutes stating there was never a stock transfer. Everything legal, everything clean, everything indisputable. Daniel Miller worked as operations director with a standard labor contract since 2018. Andrew explained. No corporate participation, no power of attorney. The company belongs 100% to Mr. David Miller. Thomas, the technician, changed the subject. Mr. Miller, your management software is exceptional, but we need guarantees that the proprietary technology is protected and legally transferable. Here I shined. I spent the next 2 hours explaining every algorithm, every innovation, every patent registered exclusively in my name. I showed development documentation since 2001. Technical evolution, source code with my author credentials. I had created that system with my own hands during thousands of hours in front of the computer. Did your son participate in technical development? Thomas asked. Absolutely not. Daniel manages clients and operations. He does not program. He does not design. He does not innovate. The technology is completely mine. Petra reviewed financial statements. We see solid revenue, stable portfolio, healthy margins, but we detect recent irregularities in secondary accounts, embezzlement that we are documenting legally. I admitted without beating around the bush. My son diverted approximately $300,000 to a parallel company. We have complete proof and legal process starting. That amount will be recovered or deducted from the final price. The The brutal honesty threw them off, but also generated trust. I was not hiding anything. Klaus leaned back in his chair. Mr. Miller, your transparency is refreshing. Our original offer was $7.5 million. Given the current circumstances and possible legal complications, we maintain that figure. Andrew looked at me, awaiting my answer. I breathed deeply. This was the moment. Gentlemen, I understand your conservative position, but allow me to reframe the situation. First, the legal complications are with a dishonest employee, not with the corporate structure you will acquire. Second, I have signed contracts with 63 active clients, 17 in advanced negotiation that I will close before transfer. Third, my software has scaling capacity that you have barely explored. I opened a presentation I had prepared during the early morning. I showed realistic projections of European expansion, integrations with German systems, untapped market potential. They were not fantasies. They were solid technical analyses based on real research. My technology is worth more today than 4 months ago when you initially offered. Clients are growing. Demand is increasing. The competition continues offering inferior products. You are not buying a company in trouble. You are buying a company ready to explode under proper management. Thomas nodded slowly. The numbers are convincing. My price is $8 million, I declared with a firm voice, non-negotiable. And I close in 36 hours, or I look for other buyers. Tense silence. Klaus consulted something off camera. Petra calculated on her computer. Thomas reviewed technical notes. We need to consult with our board of directors, Klaus said finally. You have until tomorrow at this same time. I replied, standing up. Then I consider other options. I cut the video call. Andrew looked at me stunned. David, you risked a lot. They could reject. They won't. They have been chasing this technology for a year. They know it is unique. I was right. 5 hours later, Klaus called personally. We accept. $8 million. Transfer in 2 parts. $4 million upon signing preliminary contracts. $4 million upon completing legal transfer. Perfect. Prepare documentation. I hung up and allowed a smile to cross my face for the first time in days. While Andrew coordinated lawyers, notaries, and managers, Lisa worked from the shadows. She copied every relevant corporate file to secure servers. She documented every fraudulent movement of Daniel with surgical precision. She prepared a complete dossier for delivery to authorities, if necessary. My phone kept vibrating constantly. Daniel had called 98 times in 2 days. His messages evolved from conciliatory to desperate. Dad, please, I need to talk to you urgently. There is a terrible misunderstanding. Jessica manipulated me. Too late, too little, too fake. On October 1st, the German lawyers arrived in Chicago. Exhaustive review of corporate documentation, contracts, patents, assets. Everything was impeccable because I always kept meticulous records. Lisa provided them access to complete accounting systems. Where's the operations director? One of the German lawyers asked. Fired for embezzlement of funds, Andrew replied dryly. Here is the termination letter with just cause. Effective since yesterday. I had legally fired Daniel without him knowing yet. Technically, he was still trying to enter offices where he no longer had authorization. Security had orders not to allow him access. The final negotiation occurred on October 22nd of 2024. Boardroom in a neutral law firm, notary present, certified translators. I signed 23 different documents. Every signature was liberation. Every rubric was justice. Bank transfer of $4 million, confirmed at 5:40 p.m. The remaining $4 million would arrive after completing registration transfers in 30 days. I shook hands with Klaus. Take good care of the company, I said sincerely. It has 26 years of my life inside. We will, he promised. And, Mr. Miller, I admire your courage. Not many men rebuild at your age. It is never too late to defend what is yours. I left the building with Andrew. The October sun shone warmly. I breathed deeply, feeling weight disappear from my shoulders. Now what Andrew asked. Now Daniel discovers what he lost. On the morning of October 23rd, Daniel discovered the truth in the most brutal way possible, trying to access corporate bank accounts, according to what Lisa told me later. He arrived at the office at 8:30, confident, oblivious to everything. He tried to enter the banking system and found access blocked. He called the bank directly. "Good morning. I need information about my company accounts. Your name and relationship to the company," the bank executive asked. "Daniel Miller, Operations Director." Long pause, typing on a computer. "Mr. Miller, you no longer appear as authorized on any account. The only valid signatures are Mr. David Miller and the new corporate owners." New owners? What are you talking about? "The company was transferred yesterday. I cannot give you more information. Good morning." Lisa said Daniel stood paralyzed for 5 full minutes. Then he began to scream. He called managers, accountants, assistants. No one had answers because no one knew anything except her. And Lisa feigned ignorance perfectly. Finally, he called me. It was call number 102 since my expulsion. This time, I answered. "What did you do?" His voice was a mix of panic and rage. "What the hell did you do?" "Good morning, Daniel. Do not give me formalities. Did you sell the company?" "You could not do that without consulting me." "I could, and I did. I am the sole legal owner. You were an employee. You aren't anymore. By the way, you received a termination letter yesterday for embezzlement." Stunned silence. Then explosion. "Are you crazy? That company is mine. I worked 6 years there as a salaried employee who stole $300,000. Lisa has every transaction documented. You are going to regret this," he threatened with a trembling voice. "My lawyer will destroy you. I am going to take back what belongs to me. I expect you at Andrew's office at 3 in the afternoon. Bring your lawyer. Bring Jessica. We will speak civilly." I hung up before he could answer. At 3 o'clock sharp, Daniel burst into Andrew's office like an uncontrolled hurricane. Jessica came behind, dressed elegantly but with a hard expression. Behind them, a young lawyer who seemed uncomfortable. "I demand explanations," Daniel barked as soon as he entered. "Sit down," I said with glacial calm, which clearly threw him off. They sat. Andrew placed a thick folder on the table. I took out an identical one from my briefcase. "Before you start with legal threats, let's review some facts." I started methodically. First, the company was always 100% mine. Here are the original deeds, commercial registries, notarized minutes. I never transferred a single share. Daniel opened his mouth, but Andrew interrupted him. "Let him finish, or this meeting ends now," I continued. "Second, you were hired in 2018 as an employee with a monthly salary of $4,500. You signed a standard labor contract that specifically states you do not receive stock participation. Your signature is here." I showed him the contract. His face paled. "Third, in March of 2024, you and Jessica registered Tech Vega Solutions, a shell company to divert clients and funds from my company. I slid bank statements toward him. $300,000 in 6 months. Corporate fraud documented transaction by transaction." Jessica finally spoke. "That is a lie. That company offers legitimate complimentary services." "Complimentary." Andrew smiled coldly. "Here are emails where Daniel offers discounts to clients if they hire Tech Vega simultaneously. Use of privileged information, conflict of interest, direct embezzlement." Daniel's lawyer reviewed documents with an increasingly somber expression. "Fourth," I continued, relentless. "And this is the gravest part. You plan to falsely commit me to a psychiatric clinic to obtain fraudulent mental incapacity certificates." I took out the printed emails, the one from Jessica mentioning Dr. Evans, The one from Daniel talking about mandatory vacations upstate. The complete interdiction plan detailed step by step. This constitutes attempted procedural fraud, conspiracy to commit kidnapping and falsification of medical documents, Andrew said with a hard voice. These are criminal offenses with up to 10 years in prison. Daniel's lawyer dropped the papers. Mr. Miller, I need to speak with you in private. There is nothing private here, Daniel shouted. This is invention, manipulation. Is your signature an invention? I asked, pointing to the emails. Is your corporate email address? Manipulation. Lisa recovered everything from the server before you could delete it. Jessica stood up abruptly. We had the right. You were blocking your own son's future. You forced us to take measures. Measures stealing. Falsely committing me. Those are your measures. My voice rose for the first time. I gave you dignified employment, generous salary, opportunities, and this is what I get. You owed me that company, Daniel exploded, hitting the table. I am your son. My inheritance. I worked 6 years waiting for you to give me what I deserved. You deserved respect, not automatic ownership. And you lost both when you decided to betray me, his lawyer interrupted. Gentlemen, I need to consult with my client. This case has complications that were not revealed to me initially. Consult whatever you want, Andrew said, but know this. We have a complaint prepared for the district attorney for corporate fraud. If Mr. Daniel initiates any legal process against Mr. David, we file criminal charges immediately. It is his choice. The lawyer paled. Daniel looked like a cornered animal, looking frantically between the documents. His lawyer, Jessica, and me. You have one option, I said finally. You accept the firing. You abandon any claim on the sold company, and I do not press criminal charges. The $300,000 I will consider a business loss. You start from zero, but free, and if I refuse prison, Jessica too. Dr. Evans will be investigated. Tech Vega will be audited exhaustively. Everything will come to public light. Your professional reputation destroyed forever. Long silence. Jessica looked at Daniel with a calculating expression, evaluating options. The lawyer spoke. Mr. Miller, my legal advice is to accept. You have no viable case. The documents are irrefutable. He is my father. Daniel shouted with pathetic desperation. He cannot do this to me. You stopped being my son when you screamed that I was worth nothing in front of 15 neighbors. I replied, standing up. Now you are simply someone who made grave mistakes and must face consequences. You have until tomorrow to decide. Andrew, we are finished here. I left the office without looking back. Behind, I heard Jessica hiss something to Daniel, his lawyer speaking urgently, chairs dragging outside, under the October sun. I breathed deeply. My phone showed the 134 ignored calls accumulated. I deleted them all at once. They no longer mattered. Daniel had lost. I had won. But oddly, I did not feel triumph. I felt a strange emptiness, as if closing a painful but necessary chapter of my life. Tomorrow another chapter would begin, one where Daniel did not exist, one where David Miller lived for himself finally. Daniel did not accept the offer. His wounded pride prevented him from seeing reality. 2 days later, on October 25th, the 20th, his new lawyer filed a lawsuit demanding recognition of early inheritance rights and compensation for unpaid work, equivalent to 50% of the sale value. Andrew called me that afternoon. They filed the lawsuit. It is legally ridiculous, but we will have to defend it in court. Perfect. I responded with a calm that surprised him. Let justice do its job. The first hearing was scheduled for November 15th at the Commercial Court No. 3 in Chicago. I arrived early with Andrew, carrying 3 folders full of documentation. Daniel and Jessica arrived 15 minutes late, accompanied by their lawyer, who seemed even more uncomfortable than in our previous meeting. The judge, Judge Franklin, a man of about 50 with a serious expression, briefly reviewed the preliminary documents before starting. Mr. Daniel Miller, you claim rights over a company sold by your father. Explain the legal grounds for your lawsuit. Daniel's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client worked 6 years in the family business with a verbal promise to inherit the company. He dedicated his professional life to that project with the understanding that he would be the natural successor. Do you have contracts, minutes, documents that back up that verbal promise? The judge asked. Not in writing. Your Honor, but it is custom in family businesses that— Custom is not law, the judge interrupted dryly. Anything else? My client never received a fair salary for his work. His compensation was symbolic compared to the real value of his contributions. Andrew stood up. Your Honor, here are the labor contracts signed voluntarily by the plaintiff. Monthly salary of $4,500 increased annually plus performance bonuses. Total accumulated in 6 years, $340,000 in direct compensation. He handed over certified copies. The judge reviewed them carefully. $4,500 a month is a very generous salary for an operations director in a company of that size. The judge observed. Did you sign these contracts freely? Mr. Daniel Miller. Yes, but under family pressure. And did you have a lawyer present when signing? No. But did they prevent you from seeking legal advice before signing? No. However, enough. The judge moved to other documents. I see here that the company was founded in 1998. 26 years before this lawsuit. Did the plaintiff participate in the founding? My client was 10 years old at that time, his lawyer admitted. Did he contribute initial capital? Did he develop the proprietary technology? Does he appear as a co-founder in any commercial registry? No, Your Honor. But as a son, he has rights. Inheritance is claimed after the owner passes away, not while he lives, and certainly not over assets that the owner legitimately sold. The judge looked directly at Daniel. Mr. Miller, do you have proof that your father was legally incapacitated at the moment of selling the company? Daniel hesitated. Jessica whispered something to him. Finally, he responded. I believe he was under undue influence from his lawyer. Medical proofs of mental incapacity, psychiatric certificates, testimonies from health professionals. No, but his age and emotional state. 64 years is not a legal disability. The judge cut him off. Anything else? Andrew seized the moment. Your Honor, I have evidence that the plaintiff committed corporate fraud during his employment. He presented Lisa's dossier, transfers to Tech Vega, compromising emails, falsified invoices. The judge reviewed page after page with an increasingly furrowed brow. This is very serious. Diversion of corporate funds to a personal company. $300,000 in 6 months. Your Honor, everything documented. Daniel's lawyer paled. Your Honor, those transactions were accounting misunderstandings that— Here are explicit emails deliberately splitting invoices to hide the real origin of the services. The judge pointed out, reading one aloud. This is not a misunderstanding. It is systematic fraud. Then he found the emails about the interdiction plan. His expression changed from serious to outraged. You plan to falsely commit the defendant to obtain control through fraudulent medical certificates? Absolute silence in the room. Jessica looked at the floor. Daniel was livid. Your Honor, those emails are taken out of context. The lawyer tried weakly. The context is perfectly clear. The judge closed the folder abruptly. This lawsuit completely lacks legal basis. Furthermore, the evidence presented suggests that the plaintiff committed serious crimes during his employment. I reject the lawsuit entirely. Legal costs to be paid by the plaintiff. He banged the gavel. Hearing concluded. And Mr. Daniel Miller, consider yourself lucky that your father has not filed criminal charges. Many would. We left the court under the bright November sun. Daniel stayed inside with his lawyer, probably receiving an astronomical bill for a lost cause. Well done, Andrew said, shaking my hand. It was justice. Not revenge, I replied. There's a difference. That afternoon, I received a call from the German bank. The remaining $4 million were deposited. Total, $8 million in my personal account. I sat on a bench in the park looking at the lake. 8 million. 26 years of work condensed into a digital number. I should feel joy, triumph, satisfaction. I felt loneliness. That night, I made a decision that surprised even Andrew. I want to donate $2 million to the Oncology Research Institute in Chicago, in the name of Sarah Miller. David, that is a huge amount. Sarah died of cancer. If that money helps other families not suffer the same, it is a better use than keeping it in the bank. I signed the donation papers on November 20th. The Institute organized a small ceremony. They put up a commemorative plaque, Donation Sarah Miller, in memory of her life dedicated to service and unconditional love. I cried in front of that plaque. First tears since Sarah's funeral 5 years ago, with $6 million remaining. I made a second decision, disappear from Chicago, San Diego. I always loved that coastal city where Sarah and I spent our honeymoon in 1981, where we promised to return someday to live quietly by the sea. On November the 25th, without telling anyone except Andrew and Lisa, I got on a train with 2 suitcases. This time I was not fleeing. This time I was choosing. Chicago remained behind with its painful memories, its sold company, its lost son. Ahead was San Diego, city of perpetual sun and new possibilities. I was 64 years old, $6 million, and for the first time in decades, absolutely no obligation to anyone. Freedom, terrifying and intoxicating simultaneously. San Diego welcomed me with a Pacific breeze and December sun that warmed the skin without burning. I rented an apartment in La Jolla, a quiet coastal neighborhood, far from the tourist noise of downtown. 2 bedrooms, balcony with ocean view, precious silence. The first days I walked aimlessly, beach in the mornings, local market at noon, reading on the balcony in the afternoons. 64 years discovering that I did not know how to be alone without a purpose. The company had been my identity for 26 years. Without it, who was I one afternoon? Walking through Balboa Park, I saw a sign, Pacific Art Academy, painting courses for all levels. Something in my chest stirred. Sarah always insisted that I had wasted talent. When you retire, you will paint, she used to say, caressing my hands. These hands created companies, but they can create beauty too. I never retired. She died before. I entered the academy almost without thinking. Small reception smelling of turpentine and coffee. A woman of about 50-something, brown hair tied back, red-framed glasses, genuine smile. Good afternoon. Welcome. I am Elizabeth Price, director of the academy. David Miller. I am here for the painting course. Previous experience? None. Well, I drew when I was young, 40 years ago. Elizabeth smiled. Perfect. The best time to resume is now. We have a beginners group on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. Are you interested? I signed up immediately. First class. December 3rd. 8 diverse students, a cheerful retiree, a college student, an accountant bored with numbers, a recent divorcee, and me. Elizabeth taught with infinite patience, moving between easels, correcting strokes gently. Do not look for perfection. Look for expression, she repeated. Painting is honesty, captured in color. My first attempts were clumsy disasters, twisted perspectives, muddy colors, palpable frustration. But Elizabeth always found something salvageable. Look how you captured the light here. That cannot be taught. It is felt. After classes, some students went for coffee nearby, simple conversations about techniques, favorite artists, daily life. No one asked what I did for a living. No one investigated my past. I was simply David, older man learning to paint. Elizabeth joined occasionally. I discovered she was a widow for 3 years, retired art teacher who opened the academy to keep her hands busy and her heart entertained. In her words, she had an easy laugh, firm opinions about Picasso, overrated, and passion for Sargent. That man understood light. One afternoon, working on a particularly frustrating still life, I murmured. My wife insisted I could do this. I'm not sure she was right. Elizabeth approached. Passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. I am sorry. My husband, too. Car accident. Pause. She was right about your talent. You just need to trust your instincts. Something in her tone, understanding without pity, comforted me deeply. While my personal life flourished discreetly, my finances demanded attention. 6 million inactive in the bank was waste. But I did not want traditional investments. I wanted impact. I contacted managers specialized in ethical investment. I am looking for small startups with honest founders, sustainable projects, real social impact. I'm not interested in maximizing profits, but generating change. They presented 12 projects. I chose 5. App to connect local farmers with consumers, tech recycling company, educational platform for rural areas, training center for unemployed people over 50, community solar energy cooperative. I invested 3 million distributed among them, not as a silent investor, but as an active mentor, monthly meetings, strategic advice, useful connections. These young entrepreneurs reminded me of myself 30 years ago, idealistic but inexperienced, passionate but needing guidance. While I built a new existence in San Diego, Daniel faced total collapse in Chicago. Lisa kept me informed discreetly. Daniel tried to keep up appearances after losing the lawsuit, but financial reality crushed him quickly. The house where he lived was mortgaged in his name, but the monthly payments were $2,300, which his new salary as an insurance salesman barely covered. Jessica, discovering that the $300,000 diverted evaporated in luxuries, designer bags, trips to the Maldives, expensive jewelry she bought herself, abandoned him, literally packed, and left one November night without saying goodbye, without the income of Tech Vega director, without the stolen funds, without my support. Daniel began delaying mortgage payments, then basic services, then everything, desperate to maintain an image of success. He made a fatal mistake. He asked for a loan from informal lenders, $50,000 initially, with weekly interest of 5% compound. The debt grew like financial cancer. By December, he owed $400,000 between loan sharks, banks, credit cards. The bank foreclosed on the mortgage. Daniel was literally on the street, living temporarily with a former college classmate who offered a couch out of pity. Lisa sent me a message. Daniel called the office looking for you. He is desperate. He says he needs to speak urgently. I replied, block his number. There is nothing to discuss. It sounded cruel. Probably it was. But I had learned a painful lesson. Helping someone who does not want to change is prolonging their fall, not avoiding it. On my balcony in San Diego, watching an orange sunset over a calm ocean, I felt something strange, peace mixed with melancholy. Not joy for Daniel's ruin, but acceptance that our paths diverged irreversibly. Elizabeth became more than a teacher, company on coastal walks, deep conversations about loss and reconstruction, comfortable silences drinking coffee while the world kept turning. I never mentioned money. I never bragged about achievements. I was simply David, recent widower, novice painter, man rediscovering how to live. And for the first time in decades, that was enough. One night in mid-December, sitting on my balcony under the stars, I took out Sarah's letter again. I had not reread it completely for months. I had opened it that devastating night at the hotel, but the pain then was too fresh to absorb every word she wrote. Now, with temporal and emotional distance, I needed to understand it completely. The first page began with a date, July 15th of 2019, 3 days before her death. Her handwriting, usually firm and elegant, trembled slightly in certain strokes. Effect of medications or physical weakness, I supposed. David, my eternal love, if you read this. It means our son finally showed what I feared for years. It gives me no pleasure to be right about this. Believe me, a mother always wants to be wrong when she suspects the worst of her child. I continued reading with a lump in my throat. I started noticing worrying changes in Daniel during 2014 when he was 26 years old. He came to visit us one Sunday, I remember exactly. June 8th. We were talking in the garden about his work at that consultancy. You mentioned casually that the company was worth $3.5 million then. I saw how his eyes lit up, not with pride for your achievement, but with cold calculation. He asked immediately, "When do you plan to retire?" Dad, it was not a casual question. It was a schedule evaluation. Pause to breathe. The ocean sounded soft under my balcony. A year later, in 2015, came the request for inheritance advance. $500,000. You consulted me that night, anguished because you wanted to help him, but something stopped you. Is it normal to ask for that? At 27? You asked. It was not. I investigated his investment project discreetly. David, it did not exist. I spoke with Mary Lou, his ex-girlfriend back then. She confessed that Daniel had online gambling debts, $80,000. The $500,000 were to pay that and finance an unsustainable lifestyle. I did not know any of this. Sarah never told me directly. I did not tell you because you decided to deny him the money by your own instinct. I preferred you to trust your judgment without my influence, but I began observing more carefully. The following pages detailed minute observations over 4 years. Phone conversations Sarah heard by chance, where Daniel spoke with friends about hoping the old man retires once and for all. Sarcastic comments about my age during family scenes that she noticed, but I ignored. Sudden visits to our house, always coinciding with conversations about wills or estate planning. In April of 2018, when he asked you for a job in the company, I thought he had finally matured. But I heard a phone conversation of his from our study. He was speaking with someone named Mark. He said textually, "I am getting in from the inside. In 2 years, I convinced the old man to sign the transfer. You know how he is. Sentimental and weak. It will be easy." Daniel laughed when saying that. He laughed at you. Hot tears rolled down my cheeks. I confronted him the next day. He denied everything, said I misunderstood. But his eyes told me the truth. In that moment, I knew that someday he would betray you, gravely. I began preparing to protect you. Sarah had secretly contacted Andrew in May of 2018. She asked him to review all corporate documents to ensure nothing was in a shared name. She verified that Daniel's labor contracts were legally armored against future claims. She had even left notarized instructions that, if he tried to medically interdict me, previous certificates of mine of impeccable mental health were to be presented automatically. I did all this in silence because you are too good, too trusting. You see the best in people, especially in those you love. It is one of the reasons I love you so much, but it is also a vulnerability that others can exploit. Page 7 contained observations about Jessica. Sarah had investigated her too. Jessica Vega appeared in November of 2017. Daniel introduced her to us at Christmas that year. Something about her made me uncomfortable immediately. Too interested in financial details during casual conversations, questions about properties, investments, retirement plans disguised as superficial courtesy. I hired a discreet private investigator. Jessica had been previously engaged to a 52-year-old businessman, owner of a hotel chain. She broke the engagement abruptly when he lost important contracts. Clear pattern. My wife had been a detective without me knowing. I did not tell you anything because I did not have solid proof of specific plans, only worrying patterns. But I write this so you know, when they betray you, and they will, It was not your failure. You were a loving father, generous employer, patient mentor. Some people simply choose greed over gratitude. Final pages were specific instructions. When this happens, do not sink into guilt or paralyzing sadness. You did everything right. They chose wrong. Protect what is ours legally, financially, emotionally. But afterwards, David, afterwards, live. Do not lock yourself in pain or bitterness. We were happy 42 years. Honor that happiness by being happy again. Find company if you wish. Laugh, travel. Paint those pictures you always postponed. Go to San Diego as we promised. Fulfill our dreams, even if I am not physically present. I will be in every sunset you admire, every wave you hear, every color you mix on your palette. Last page was simply, I love you eternally. You were, are, and will be the great love of my existence. Now be the great love of yours, Sarah. I folded the letter slowly. The ocean kept sounding. San Diego slept quietly. Elizabeth had invited me tomorrow to an exhibition at the local art museum. My investments in startups showed promising results. I had painting class on Thursday. Sarah was right. She was always right. I was not betraying her memory by being happy. I was honoring her. I kept the letter in a special drawer next to our wedding photograph. I kissed my fingers and touched her smiling face in the image. Thank you. My love, I whispered, I am living. Finally, I am living. February of 2025. Arrived with those mornings where the sun shines, but the air keeps a pleasant winter freshness. I had been in the city for 3 months and felt that every day I discovered a version of myself that had been asleep for decades. That transformation accelerated when I met Michael Owen. It happened in a coffee shop near the pier. I was reading books on watercolor techniques when an older man, 70-something I calculated, approached my table. Do you mind if I share all tables are taken? Go ahead, please. He sat with a black coffee and a financial newspaper. He noticed my book, Painting Fan, Eternal Beginner. I replied, smiling, I started 3 months ago. It is never too late, they say. Totally true. I started practicing photography at 68. Now I am 71 and participate in local exhibitions. He extended his hand. Michael Owen. David Miller. The conversation flowed naturally. Michael had been a textile businessman for 40 years. He built a modest but solid empire in Phoenix until his 2 partners, men he trusted blindly, betrayed him through complex legal maneuvers. They stole 60% of the company, using contractual loopholes that he, trusting, never foresaw. I lost almost everything, he said without bitterness, only acceptance. Legal battles for 3 years. Finally, I sold the remaining 40% and moved here. I decided San Diego would be a place to rebuild, not lament. I told him my story, not all details, but enough. Company sold after family betrayal. New beginning at 64. Search for purpose beyond money. Michael listened attentively. When I finished, he nodded thoughtfully. You know what is missing in this country. Real support for businessmen over 60 who want to reinvent themselves. All investment funds look for 25-year-olds with tech ideas. No one invests in a 65-year-old man with 40 years of experience, but needing capital to start something new. Something clicked in my mind. What if we do it? Do what create a specific fund for senior businessmen, people with experience, contacts, knowledge, but without financial resources after divorces, bankruptcies, betrayals. Michael's eyes shone. It would be revolutionary. During the following weeks, we met almost daily. We designed the complete structure. Investment fund focused exclusively on entrepreneurs over 55 years old. We were not looking for tech unicorns. We were looking for solid businesses, sustainable, led by experienced people frequently ignored by the traditional financial system. I invested $2 million. Michael contributed $800,000. With $2,800,000, we legally established the Senior Renaissance Fund in March of 2025. Criteria were strict, but human. Demonstrable experience in the proposed sector, realistic business plan, personal commitment of the entrepreneur, positive social impact. We did not demand impossible mortgage guarantees. We demanded honesty, work, and responsibility. First investments arrived in April. A 58-year-old woman, former bank manager fired due to cuts, wanted to open financial consultancy for divorced women. We gave her $80,000. A 64-year-old man, master carpenter forced into retirement, dreamed of an artisan workshop combining traditional techniques with modern design. $100,000. A 62-year-old couple, former owners of a restaurant ruined by the pandemic, wanted to reopen with a sustainable concept. $120,000. By June, we had financed 9 projects, all prospering, while the fund grew. My relationship with Elizabeth evolved naturally. It was not a soap opera romance. It was deep friendship, transforming gradually into something more meaningful. It started with conversations after painting classes extending until midnight. Then Sunday walks along the boardwalk. Then short trips. Santa Barbara in May, Napa in June, Sonoma in July. Elizabeth took photos while I painted clumsy but honest watercolors of landscapes. "You have an interesting eye," Elizabeth commented, reviewing my notebooks. "Not perfect technique, but you capture the emotional essence of places. That is more valuable." "You taught me to see differently," I replied sincerely. "No, I simply gave you permission to trust what you always saw." In July, Elizabeth suggested something unexpected. "Have you considered photography? It would complement your painting. Different media, same search for beauty." I bought a professional digital camera days later. I discovered immediate passion. Photography was immediacy, where painting was patience. Both completed me. Elizabeth and I became inseparable without defining labels. We were not formal boyfriend and girlfriend. We were two widowed people finding company, complicity, and renewed affection, in a stage where society expects us to simply wait for the end. We rejected that expectation. While my existence flourished, Daniel's collapse was completed. Lisa wrote to me in August. Jessica left Daniel definitely. She discovered that, besides losing everything, he contracted debts with illegal lenders. $400,000 accumulated. She literally fled, changed phone, blocked social media. Daniel remained alone with unpayable debts. I felt neither joy nor satisfaction. I felt a strange emptiness. This man, destroyed financially and emotionally, was technically my son. But it was also a stranger who chose betrayal over loyalty. "Is he still trying to contact you?" Lisa asked. "Not anymore. He stopped calling 2 months ago." Tacit silence. Daniel had finally understood that the bridge was burned irreparably. He worked selling insurance for a small company. Basic salary of $1,400 a month. He lived in a rented room, sharing an apartment with 3 strangers. The lenders pursued him legally. His life was daily survival, nothing more. Part of me, a small but real part, wanted to help. But I remembered Sarah's letter. Some people only learn when they face the full consequences of their choices. Daniel chose. Now he lived that choice. In September, Senior Renaissance Fund had helped 23 entrepreneurs. 19 projects were functioning successfully. 3 had failed but learning valuable lessons. 1 had exceeded all expectations, generating jobs and expanding regionally. Michael and I did not just invest money. We mentored actively, connected entrepreneurs with each other, shared experiences, warned about mistakes we made decades ago. "We are changing lives," Michael said one afternoon. "We are demonstrating that 60 is not the end, but a potential beginning," I corrected. Elizabeth organized my first small photography exhibition at her academy for October. 15 images of the coast captured during our trips. Title: New Looks from Old Eyes. I sold 3 photographs. Profits: $450 that I donated completely to the fund. I did not need money. I needed purpose, and finally, I had found it. October of 2025 arrived with unusual rain. I had turned 65 in August, celebrating discreetly with Elizabeth, Michael, and friends from the investment fund at a restaurant by the ocean. 1 exact year since that sale that changed everything. I was photographing seagulls at the pier when my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I almost ignored the call, but something made me answer. Dad Daniel's broken voice cut through the year of silence like a rusty knife. My stomach contracted. "How did you get this number? Lisa gave it to me. I begged her for weeks." Long pause. "I am in San Diego. I need to see you." "Please." I should have hung up. I should have refused. But morbid curiosity, or perhaps the need to close the cycle permanently, made me agree. Pier coffee shop. 1 hour. I arrived early, choosing an outside table with a view of the harbor. I needed open space for this. Elizabeth had offered to accompany me, but I refused. It is something I must do alone. Daniel appeared exactly at the agreed time. I almost did not recognize him. The man approaching, limping slightly, was a shadow of the arrogant operations director who expelled me 12 months ago. He had lost probably 30 pounds, cheap and worn clothes, messy hair with premature gray hairs I did not remember, deep circles under his eyes, trembling hands. He sat in front of me without asking for permission. "Thank you for coming." I did not respond. I simply observed him with clinical distance, like an entomologist studying a specimen. "I know I do not deserve even a minute of your time," he began with a hoarse voice, "but I need you to listen. I need you to understand." Understand what, exactly? That I was wrong. Terribly wrong. Tears began rolling down his cheeks. "Jessica manipulated me. She convinced me that I deserved more, that you were stealing my future. Jessica did not force you to plan my forced commitment. Jessica did not steal $300,000. Jessica did not scream parasite at me in front of 15 neighbors." He shrank, as if the words were physical blows. "You are right, absolutely right. It was me. It was all my decision." Waiter approached. I ordered a black coffee. Daniel asked for water. He did not have money for more. I supposed. "Why are you here?" "Daniel?" "Because I lost everything. Absolutely everything. The apartment, Jessica, friends, dignity. I work selling policies for a miserable commission. I owe $400,000 to dangerous people who threaten me weekly. I live in a shared room with strangers." He sobbed openly. "And the worst is that I deserve every second of this hell." I drank my coffee slowly. "Did you come asking for financial rescue?" "No." He shook his head, frantically. "I came asking for forgiveness. I came telling you that you were right about everything. That Mom was right about me. That I am exactly the failure she feared. Did you know your mother left me a letter before dying?" His face paled. "What 12 pages detailing every alarm signal she observed for years? Your obsession with money. Your gambling debts that you hid. Your conversations where you laughed at my naivety. She knew who you were before I accepted seeing it." Daniel covered his face with his hands. "My God, Sarah loved you. But she also knew you. And she protected me, even from her deathbed." Heavy silence fell between us. Seagulls squawked. Tourists walked by laughing. The world continued indifferent to our private drama. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked finally with a voice barely audible. "Any way to repair? Even a fragment of what I destroyed?" I considered the question honestly. "You can live differently. Work honestly. Pay your debts gradually. Build the character you never had. But do it for you, not waiting for my approval or reward. And us, is there a possibility of—" "No." The word came out firm, without hesitation. "That bridge was burned Completely. You lit the fire. I cut the remaining ropes. There is no reconstruction possible. But I am your son. You are an adult man who took adult decisions with adult consequences. Shared blood does not erase conscious betrayal. He broke completely. He cried with sobs that shook his thin body. A tiny part of me, ancestral echo of fatherhood, wanted to console him, but that part no longer dictated my actions. Daniel, I learned something fundamental this year. I can live without you. In fact, I live better. I have peace I never had with you nearby. Purpose that I built independently. Company that values honesty over opportunism. I cannot live without you. He whispered. Yes, you can. You just need to learn how. Just like I learned. I got up leaving enough bills to cover both consumptions. The crucial difference is that I chose to live fully. You must choose to live honestly. They are different paths that will never cross again, not even occasionally. An annual coffee. Birthday message. Nothing. Complete silence. It is the only gift I can give you. Freedom from my expectations and my disappointment. I walked toward the exit. Daniel called my name. Dad, I stopped, but did not turn around. I love you. Despite everything, I love you. I breathed deeply. I loved you too. Past tense. Goodbye. Daniel. I left without looking back. Elizabeth waited for me nearby, respecting distance but present. She hugged me without words. I cried on her shoulder for long minutes. Did you do the right thing? She asked softly. I did what was necessary. That night, on my balcony, under bright stars, I felt the final weight vanish. Daniel was a past closed definitively. Ahead was a future built with my own hands, decisions and merits. 65 years old, widower, without a son, but surrounded by genuine friends, meaningful projects, renewed love. It was not the ending I imagined. It was better. December of 2025. A year and 3 months since that public humiliation that paradoxically became my liberation. I am sitting in the Contemporary Art Gallery in downtown San Diego. The exhibition is titled Rebirths, Views from the Second Half. 30 photographs of mine capturing faces and moments of entrepreneurs, from the fun Michael and I created. Every image tells a story of resilience, reinvention, courage. Elizabeth is next to me, her hand resting naturally in mine. We did not make a dramatic announcement about our relationship. It simply happened, organically, as important things should happen. We are partners in a deeper sense. Two people who lost a lot, but chose to build again instead of giving up. That is my favorite, she says, pointing to a photograph of Ramon, a 64-year-old carpenter whose artisan workshop now employs 6 people. In the image, his weathered hands hold a piece of wood, carved with exquisite detail. Natural light illuminates every wrinkle, every scar, every story contained in those hands. Hands, honest, are always beautiful, I reply. The exhibition attracts 50 people. We sell 17 photographs. Complete profits go to the fund. I do not need money. I need impact. Michael approaches with a glass of wine. 26 entrepreneurs now. We just approved 3 more projects. Artisan Bakery, led by a 61-year-old woman. Human Resources Consultancy for Small Businesses, directed by a 57-year-old former manager, and a language school specializing in seniors. We are changing the narrative, I say, demonstrating that experience is worth as much as youth. More, Michael corrects smiling, because it comes with painfully earned wisdom. I received a message from Lisa 3 weeks ago. Daniel continues working honestly. He sold an important policy that generated a commission of $4,000. He used it all to pay debts. He lives austerely, without luxuries, without shortcuts. Finally, learning a fundamental lesson. Dignity is built with sustained effort. It is not inherited, nor stolen. I did not answer the message. His path is no longer my responsibility. I think frequently about those 26 years building a company from scratch with Sarah. They were extraordinary. But these last 14 months, rebuilding from emotional ruins, have been revealing in a different way. I learned that identity should not be tied exclusively to professional achievements or family roles. Identity is a daily choice to live authentically. Sarah would be proud, not for the money kept or revenge executed, but for the life chosen afterwards. I fulfilled every instruction of her letter. I protected our legacy. I settled in San Diego. I painted. I photographed. I found genuine company. I lived fully. Elizabeth is organizing a trip to Portugal for January. 2 weeks traveling the coast, photographing, painting, existing without an agenda beyond enjoying the present. At 65, I finally understand the concept of true vacation. The investment fund thrives beyond initial expectations. Several entrepreneurs we financed now mentor others, creating a self-sufficient support network. Michael and I plan to expand the model to other cities. Seattle expressed interest in replicating the concept. We are not millionaire saviors. We are men who understood that financial capital without human capital is sterile. We invest both, money and experience, resources and respect. Someone asks me during the exhibition, "What advice would you give to older people facing betrayals or devastating losses?" I think carefully before answering. First, pain is valid, but it should not be permanent. Feel it completely, then choose to move forward. Second, age is not a limitation but an advantage. You have perspective that young people do not possess yet. Use it. Third, rebuilding does not mean recovering what was lost, but creating something new and potentially better. Fourth, surround yourselves with people who value character over convenience. And fifth, never, ever allow the betrayal of others to define your worth. You determine your own value through daily actions. Spontaneous applause. Elizabeth squeezes my hand. That night, on the balcony that became a personal sanctuary, I look at the stars shining indifferent to human dramas. I think of Daniel in Chicago, probably in a narrow room, fighting with debts and regrets. A tiny part of me still hurts for him, but that part no longer governs decisions. I chose life over misunderstood loyalty. I chose dignity over family guilt. I chose future over past. Phone vibrates. Message from Ramon, the carpenter, Mr. Miller. They just commissioned me furniture for a complete hotel. Contract of $80,000. Without your initial help, I would be begging for a job that no one gives to men my age. Thank you for believing, I reply. I did not give you anything you did not already have. I only recognized your potential. Elizabeth comes out to the balcony with 2 glasses of wine. We toast in silence, looking at the illuminated city below us. Happy, she asks simply. Completely. And it is true. Not naive happiness, ignoring past pain. Mature happiness that integrates losses, betrayals, disappointments into a broader narrative of resilience and renewal. 65 years old, widower, father without a son, businessman without a company. Also, active mentor, emerging photographer, enthusiastic painter, loving partner, social investor, man living exactly as he wishes. Daniel taught me a crucial lesson. Shared blood does not guarantee loyalty. Painful but liberating experience. Sarah taught me another. True love transcends physical death when it is honored through a life well lived. Elizabeth is teaching me a third. It is never too late for authentic connection based on mutual respect. And I finally learned the most important one. Dignity is not inherited nor given away. It is conquered daily, choosing integrity over convenience, courage over conformity, growth over stagnation. The story began with humiliating expulsion. It ends with chosen liberation. Not all endings are happy, but some, the ones honestly earned, are deeply satisfying. I toast with Elizabeth under the stars, grateful for the betrayal that finally forced me to live for myself? Sometimes, losing everything is the only path to finding the essential. If you like this story, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.